In the dying days of Krypton, how did Jor-El and his wife Lara risk it all to save their son? You may know the story as it was, but in the darker Absolute universe, the story has changed. What'll happen next? Well, let's hop into the pages of Absolute Superman issue number 3 and find out together, shall we? So then, as we join the book proper, Kal-El treats us to another flashback to the final days of Krypton, though he did not know it at the time. As we've seen all throughout this series, Kal was something of an odd duck on Krypton, not fast or athletic enough for sports, so a career in the lawkeeper's field was out of reach to him. He was very intelligent and asked a lot of questions. Unfortunately, that didn't make him a lot of friends in academia, and indeed ended up cutting off a career in the Science League to him. Not that the young Superman cared too much, as with no other options left, he would end up having to join his parents with a career on the labor force. Basically, the lowest, most plebeian end of the Kryptonian caste structure. It was during one of these camping trips doing research out in the wilderness. Young Clark saw something in his parents, especially his father, begin to change after they investigated more of the red crystal, only to find more green acid. That we as the reader, of course, know is this universe's answer to the famous kryptonite. At first, Clark thought to himself that maybe his parents were mad because he kept getting in trouble in school, when in reality, they both loved how they had raised a kind, empathetic, curious son who was willing to buck against the Science League as they had done in their youth. Though admittedly, it was this curious, inquisitive nature that would probably end up getting young Kal in trouble. You see, his parents ended up getting more distant as they began work on their special project that they believed could help them save Krypton, a planet that Kal at the time didn't even know was dying, though he would end up learning completely independent of his parents. When he and his faithful companion Krypto decided to investigate the surrounding area, they found a bunch of animals dead of kryptonite poisoning, as well as several other terrifying ecological disasters, like the seas boiling, the volcanoes erupting more frequently, and even diamond tornadoes getting only worse on the planet's surface. Hell, Kal, ever the young journalist, would end up writing an entire paper on his findings, only to have it completely deleted from the school records. Right around the same time, him and his class were taking a field trip to Kandor, a trip that they almost didn't survive as their train was almost derailed by an earthquake, or Krypton quake, I guess you would call it. Now, where exactly was this field trip going, you might be wondering? Well, to the Science League HQ, of course, meaning that poor young Clark was there on the very day his father was decried as a madman, and arrested for subversion and crimes against the Science Council. Ouch, that's gotta be rough. Also, I love that the jackbooted thugs of the Science League have little zeros on their chest where Superman's S would be. That reminds me of both Black Zero as a concept, and also how they draw the Eradicator symbol sometimes. Kal rushes home and tells his mother everything that transpired, and you think, oh no, is this the moment that she ends up loading her son up onto a rocket and sending him to Earth? Oh no, you see, Lara's actually a total badass in this universe and had one hell of a backup plan. She figures now would be the perfect opportunity to take all the stuff that her and her husband have been building for a test run, including the Soul AI, the battle suit that we saw Superman utilize in the previous 2 issues, as well as a massive sci-fi gun that shoots lava, because of course, why wouldn't it shoot lava? Lara leads a daring raid on the Law Guild to break out her husband, and of course Clark ends up tagging along anyway. It's during this adventure, though, Clark ends up discovering something his parents missed, and that is, despite decrying Jor-El as a madman with conspiracy theories about the planet's destruction, all the Science League higher-ups, in fact all the upper crust caste people in general, are completely gone during the middle of a workday. Kal screws around on one of their computers for a little bit and ends up uncovering the dark truth, and that is that the true puppet masters of Krypton always knew their planet was doomed, but shouted down and blacklisted people like Jor-El so that they could buy enough time to build space arcs, allowing them to escape the planet and their destruction. Well, geez, you know, at least this is only a comic book fantasy, and it's not like in the real world the richest and most powerful people are putting all their resources behind space travel for more or less the same reasons, right? Oh. Also, too, during the big fight to rescue Jor-El, Krypto the Superdog ends up coming along too and making use of the same red particle cape that Superman will use. Wow, to think I had a big Cosmo story this week and a big Krypto story this week. It has just been an excellent week for the goodest boys. Now, with Jor-El finally liberated and all this cutting-edge tech fully tested out, the parents decide now is the time to reveal to Clark what they've been working on and the sad fate of their planet. Again, young Superman is a pretty smart kid, though, and manages to shock both his parents with the fact that not only has he pretty much figured it out all on his own, but even more so, Cal was sure to use his time alone to leak the information about the upper crust of Krypton escaping the planet on the space version of the internet, meaning that suddenly his father doesn't look so crazy. Now, in another truly wonderful subversion of the Superman story, it's right around here Cal says, let me guess, you could only build one rocket capable of sending me to another world to start over? And how it breaks your heart as parents, but you know deep down I'll have a better life elsewhere, only for Lara and Jor-El to go, nah, single rocket, that's totally stupid. We built a whole space arc, we're all going together. In fact, we want to try and save our whole community. Hell, we try and save our whole cast if we could. Unfortunately, only so many people can fit in the space arc. Now, if you think that's an unexpected twist on the classic Superman story formula, you haven't seen anything yet, because as the comic comes to a close, we actually check on back in the present. In what little bit actually remains of Smallville, you see, at a retirement community, there is a woman clinging to life asking for her son, despite the fact that all the doctors and nurses don't actually know her to have any child at all. Who is this woman and what is her name? Well, you won't be surprised that her bracelet reads M. Kent. Yes, that's right, it's Ma Kent, everyone. Who, by the sounds of it, actually did have a relationship with young Superman, but how did that happen? I guess we'll have to check back on in next time and find out, won't we? And so that was Absolute Superman issue number 3, everybody, and overall I thought it was another very strong entry in the very strong Absolute line. I'm sure it must have been very hard for even a great writer like Jason Aaron to have to take a stab at another Superman origin story. I don't think anything makes comic fans' eyes roll like the idea of having to sit through another origin story for probably the most well-known superhero ever. And yet, to his credit, I think Aaron pulls it off by making use of those big and little subversions, like I said. Furthermore, I actually really appreciate that this story ended up being just as much about Jor-El and Lara as it was about Cal. This is probably one of the most warts and all realistic take on Superman's parents. You know, he's actually old enough to remember them and how they were not these, idealized versions that existed only in holograms. So far, I would say the secret weapon of the Absolute DC universe is retelling these classic superhero stories with a more modern eye, and more topical window dressing and messaging, and here in the Superman book, I don't think it could be any louder. Superman's father, Jor-El, is literally trying to deliver an inconvenient truth to a world that doesn't want to hear it. Even though they secretly know it's true, they're already trying to escape the damage they've done to the world and go elsewhere to probably end up doing it all over again. In fact, it already is happening again on Earth, as we've seen with the Lazarus Corporation. Overall, I think I'd feel comfortable giving this one another solid 9 out of 10. Art is good, story is interesting. I'm thoroughly riveted by all these different new twists and turns, and I can't wait to see where the story ends up going from here. Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers, a lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest. That's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow and, help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.